So, the housing crisis is impacting everyone in our community and in the country. I'm wondering how the housing crisis has been affecting you or maybe your family personally.
It's such an interesting question, and I was talking to another reporter this week about the pandemic and how many many communities, especially urban communities, have had to make a sort of a gestalt shift, or they have done that. They've reflected and asked themselves why they live where they live, what are the most important things in their lives, and some of the friends and the folks that I've talked to have made some big decisions about where they want to continue their lives with their families. And many of my friends, or all of my friends, are progressives, and not not in any way. Austerity and capitalism is something that they despise, and big banks and big pharma and all of that sort of thing is just not part of our paradigm. And so a lot of people have that I know and friends have decided to really not consider the city as the center of their universe any longer, because making money to live in a house in Toronto for $4,000 a month is not helping, and is not helping their recovery from the pandemic. In fact, so many people have lost their homes in Toronto, and you go there and there's tent city here and tent city there. People have lost their jobs, they've lost their homes. It's post-apocalyptic. And so it's tragic to see communities be so impacted by everything that's happened in the last year and a half. It's heartbreaking. And a lot of my friends have been spending time with Paul Taylor and the food banks, and teachers and ed worker friends that I know delivering food to people because they've lost their home, they've lost their houses. And I talk to people who have their whole families have had COVID, because we know that Toronto's been a hot spot. And so, there's been a whole lot of reflection. And people have said, listen, I don't want to live here anymore. I don't need that job. I'd rather be with my family, my mother, father, grandparents in Owen Sound, and I'll leave here and I'll live there, and at least I can have a healthy, more sustainable lifestyle. So what we're seeing, the people that have had privilege during this pandemic, and I being one, I didn't get evicted. I was a homeowner recently in Toronto. So I had options, but a lot of people don't have options. People who've had options have radiated out of the city because they don't care so much about the money they make. They want to live simply. They want to grow food. They want to decrease their carbon footprint because they see what's happening all around them. And that's what's been happening for a whole lot of people that I know. And I know that's been going on for me for some time now. So the housing situation is outrageous. The fact that in Peterborough, since December, the cost of buying a home is 30% more than it was in the previous year. It's outrageous. And when in moving here and buying a house, I didn't pay those prices because it was before it all happened. And I know that there's such a housing crisis here. And I have new friends that I've made who are Trent graduate students and so forth. They can't even find a place to live reasonably at a reasonable price, because there's been no impetus on the part of this Liberal government to create new affordable housing for youth, for seniors. They're working on finishing the same projects that were initiated a couple of years ago. And I know that because I've been watching and reading in the time that I've lived here. It's a shame that this government, with all the time that they've had during a lockdown, and I'm speaking specifically to Peterborough and Ontario, because that's where I live, there's been so little emphasis played on what's going to happen in a post-pandemic recovery, and how housing is so pivotal and key to a recovery. And
Yeah,
now
so let,
we're facing a fourth wave, and we need to have a plan around housing. Thank you.
yeah, so let's talk about affordable housing. When you say affordable housing, what do you mean by affordable? And how will your government, how would an NDP government increase the stock of housing that's affordable for people that make minimum wage in Peterborough?
So, I've said from the beginning and since my nomination meeting, it's been so great to meet folks from all walks of life and that are connected to all sorts of community organizations and also to the people that are experiencing homelessness, having to move and be in shelters. Like there's everything is so porous right now, and it doesn't matter where you were before. Everybody's had to make some sort of adjustment and have been impacted so incredibly in terms of their home base and their families and so on. So really there need to be, the stakeholders are everybody, all of the various social strata, different levels of income. We believe in universal basic income. It has to happen because we're an organic society. We need to take care of each other. We're not a bucket of balls that are individualistic and separate in a container. We are organic, and we need to all be together at tables, laterally at tables with an equal voice, stating what is going on, sharing that, and then making plans and creating mechanisms to move this forward. And so not only everybody in Peterborough, representatives from every community of every income level, but also every level of government needs to be at that table. There needs to be a federal representative, and that could be me. There needs to be a provincial representative or representatives, and that will be whoever it is. Currently, it's a Conservative MPP, and we all need to be working together. And on a municipal level, whoever, and we know we have the mayor and all of the city councillors, we need to be at a table together with every level of society saying, okay, this, and this, and this, and this. We know that these are the issues that we need to address because we're still in a pandemic. And here's what we need to be able to move forward, to be safe, to be healthy, to get through a fourth wave. We know it's on the horizon and it's already starting. And what do we need to do after? And we need all those voices at the table, including the organizations that have already been doing such amazing work.
Can you tell me about the NDP housing platform and sort of how, like what the major points of it are and how it will impact?
Absolutely. So the housing platform is connected to obviously the economy, right? And so we know that Jagmeet and the federal NDP have been talking about needing to create new affordable housing projects. We heard him talk about senior care and seniors residences yesterday, and how there needs to be, he promises, and he's been stating that we would hope to have a publicly created, publicly developed, publicly funded senior housing strategy, so that no longer would it be individual privatized systems making money, but it would be to meet the needs, and it's publicly funded and with mechanisms that are consistent and standards that are in place, so that we don't have the tragedy going forward in long-term care facilities and seniors residents. We need housing that is safe. We need housing that is accessible for all ages, from youth up into adults, from every community. And I know that Jagmeet has a plan for that to be publicly funded, and that care and compassion and all the elements of good housing, urban planning, rural planning, city planning would need to take place. But again, it's about a collaborative approach, and it's with a Green New Deal where we make a just transition to a clean economy, where we have good green jobs, and we create new infrastructure so that those jobs could be part of a revisioning and a revamping of old spaces, because there have been 6 large industries that have left in the last few decades. We can use those spaces, we can create wind power, solar power, all of those things, and make sure that they're clean, they're safe forms of energy, and that we leave fossil fuel behind, and that we get rid of carbon-based energy sources, and that we make an immediate transition. We don't have time anymore for gradual transitions. We need a just transition. We know that the Bank of Canada determines priorities, and it's the rate of inflation that we have to watch. But that can be offset by the good green jobs that we create. And,
if we can just stick to housing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, when we get off topic, I might end up cutting.
Okay, I just wanted to say that it's all very integrated, William.
Maybe that's, yeah, I agree with that. So you mentioned this idea to do publicly funded seniors housing. I noticed in the NDP platform a reliance on sort of investing in co-ops and nonprofit housing providers.
That's right.
To deliver, a goal of 500,000 units over 10 years. I'm wondering, I know that a lot of the sort of the housing nonprofits in Peterborough have been struggling, and they've been under-resourced for a long time. They don't have a lot of capacity, and I'm not sure that just offering them more money is enough to help them to deliver the kind of housing that we need. So I'm wondering how you would work with those nonprofits locally, either ones that already exist or new ones, to get that housing built quickly.
So if there's a will, there's a way. And if there's a presence, there's a way. So, certainly I'm hearing that there hasn't been a presence federally, that the liberal representation has not been here as much. And that, there's some jurisdictional blurriness, or finger pointing, well, that's federal, and there's federal money for this and provincial money for that, municipal. The money and the funding is sort of cross-jurisdictional. So, part of the purpose of what we need to do to elect an NDP government here is to get all of the stakeholders together at the table to make sure that the co-op housing and the working with nonprofits, that we really fine tune and see what's been missing and what needs to be done in order to kickstart and get all the pistons firing in a coordinated way. So I'm excited to, attend the city council meetings and which I have been already. And it's exciting to hear about the changes in the transit plan, and, moving towards a more grid system, and the new cycling template that's happening. It's never perfect, but we all are working towards incrementally a better plan. So I'm excited to sit in city council every single time, even if it's online, to be able to hear what's going on, to hear about the progress that's happening, and to troubleshoot what is it that we need to do to get that co-op happening, housing happening quicker, and to work with the stakeholders that have been providing it currently, so that we can make it better. And I know that's what Jagmeet has as his plan on a federal level. And certainly that would be my desire, to bring that to Ottawa, to make sure all those coordinated pieces are in action.
Yeah, so I was excited to read that focus on co-ops and nonprofits in the platform, but I know that going forward, the private market will still have a role to play in contributing to solutions to the housing crisis. And I'm wondering how you see the private market fitting into to these discussions, and how you might like to see them contribute solutions.
Well, a magazine that I always subscribe to and do is Spacing. And I think about urban planning and people like Jennifer Keesmaat, who are speaking right now to the media about how we need to revision our cities, how we need to revision our towns and communities. given that we're still in a pandemic and facing so much more in the fall. And this is what needs to happen. These kind of discussions need to occur. And we need to talk about long-term goals, what we hope to see by a certain time. And then we need, because this isn't going to just be fixed in the snap of a finger with a change of a government. This is going to have to be people listening to one another, recognizing all the strengths that we bring to the table, whatever our party stripe. This is not a partisan problem to solve. This is a community problem to solve. And we're all parts of a community that will contribute to solutions. So I'm excited to working with every government on every level, provincially, municipally, that currently is in power and that will be in power. And even, you know, in terms of this, whatever the outcome is of this election, you know, as a citizen and someone who loves Peterborough, I want to participate in that through the organizations that I am excited about belonging to and have already connected to in my time living here. So I'm an activist, and that's my first my first sort of badge, and that's what I'll always be. Thank you.
You mentioned earlier in our conversation just the huge rise in housing prices in Peterborough over the last year and a half. You know, that's been a windfall for people during the pandemic, for people that already own homes, but it hasn't been too great for people that rent or that haven't bought a home yet. Do you think that housing prices need to fall? And would you, support the government enacting policies with that as a goal?
Absolutely. This is beyond what should be, and it needs to be. It's like a racehorse that's out of the gate, and we need to stop. We need to stop it, because it's not okay that this race is going on. And before there is more damage and loss and just access that is obstructed to good housing for everybody, it needs to be stopped. So I absolutely concur and agree with you, William, on that piece.
What's an initiative in Peterborough around housing that you think is really inspiring, that you think has been finding success, and that we should be looking to as a model to maybe replicate?
So I really enjoy the bike trails, and there's the trail over by Jackson Park that
to be clear, if it can be like a housing initiative that you think is proving to be.
So I'm just telling you that
okay.
There's a housing complex right there by that heritage trail at the corner of is it Park Hill and Monaghan. That's an entrance to the heritage trail, and just beside that there's a converted an old heritage building that has been converted into a co-op residence, and there has been another wing to it that's been in development. It was in the Examiner not long ago, just talking about how that new wing is coming together and that there was new money put towards it.
Are you thinking of the Mount?
Not at the Mount.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out what you're thinking of.
It's right at the entry of that trail over by Jackson Park.
Yeah.
And there's a community center, there's a complex there, and there's an old heritage building that's part of a co-op, and there's also another residence that it could be a women's residence, actually.
Yeah, you're thinking of the McCrae development from Peterborough Housing Corporation.
Yeah, and I've read about that, and I think it's just so fantastic that is finally coming together in a concrete way. And that's been part of the work of these governments up to this point. And I think there's an example of collaborative, connected work happening with different jurisdictions and different leaders, and also the community playing such a vital role in envisioning what that should look like. I look forward to seeing more of that happen, and to participating at tables as an activist and as an organizer, and hopefully, if I'm elected, as a member of parliament that can bring some analysis and some action to that if I go to Ottawa. Thank you.
Cool. So my last question about housing is, so the current Liberal government voted to formally recognize housing as a human right, but it hasn't really been made clear yet how that's going to look in practice in Canada, and how that's going to be realized. So I'm wondering, what it means to you to think about housing as a human right, and how you'd like to see that realized in Peterborough.
Thanks, William. In my role as a delegate to the Canadian Labour Congress and as an ATFO executive member, I've been to the United Nations Committee on the Status of Women. I've been a delegate every year and gone to New York in the time that I've been elected. And every year we look at and we revisit the 17 goals for a sustainable future. The United Nations Sustainability Goals. And I'm part of the team that writes an analysis of where we've come since the previous NCSW, and then we make plans and assess our short-term goals for the future. And I'm waving at Vicky Smallman because she's our leader when we're there with the Canadian Labour Congress. Housing is one of those human rights. So this is part of my lens, and it has been for a long time, that those 17 goals for a sustainable future that the United Nations talks about, and everything, and I can list them all for you, but everything from, poverty to housing to clean water for all. There's a Children's Bill of Rights as well, but there's 17 and they're all so integrated, and housing is top of the pile. I intend to keep my ear to that track, and I have all the friends and colleagues in education and in the labor movement who are seeking to look to how we can protect families and women globally. Our heart breaks for everything that's happening right now. I can't even fathom it, but that's a whole other podcast altogether. So I'm committed to that, and United Nations Committee for the Status of Women and the 17 goals for sustainability, so that we can meet climate targets before 2030, and that we can make that happen now. No more gradual transitions. We need immediate action in order to save this planet. And thank you, Greta, for reminding all of us of that.